Welcome to our weird world. I am your host, John Henson, and it is the summer of cults, finally into the final month of the summer of cults, into the home stretch here. Just a couple more episodes to go. We got today, next week, the week after that, and then the week after that. You get 4 more cults to look into, starting today. This is real stupid. I should start over, but I'm not gonna. We're too far into it. Today, it is the Aggressive Christianity Mission Training Corps. So let's get into it.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
Leila Carter was born in 1947 in Sacramento, California. Her parents were poor. Her father was an alcoholic. You get it. It's the same tired story. You get it at this point. When Leila's brother died of lung cancer in the late 1960s, she dropped out of college and joined the Bear Tribe, which was this group of hippies who smoked way too much weed and promoted an all-natural lifestyle. You can already see, like, all of the ingredients are there. While in the group, Leila married a guy named Jim Green, who in the group was named Buffalo Sun because of course he was. And he really enjoyed getting high and howling at the moon. The couple eventually moved up to Montana, where they encountered a much harsher view of their drug use and lifestyle. And this, like, you know, look, Idaho, Montana, those are the places that you go to get away, like away. Like, you don't, like, you're cool with the government, but you don't trust them. Like, you want the government, you know, you vote for the governments that share your ideals and you're all about it, but you don't trust them and you still don't like them and you want to keep your guns and all that. And for some reason, Leila and Buffalo Sun thought they could just move up to Montana to really live their hippie lifestyle and smoke all the weed. And here's the thing. Nope, can't do that. No. California, 100%, all day, every day. Montana, Idaho, no. Eastern Oregon, no. Eastern Washington, no. None of those places frown, are too, they really do frown upon hippies and all the weed and everything. And so that was their mistake. And so things were not going well. Leila attempted suicide 3 times while they lived there before Buffalo Sun brought home a man that he had met while hitchhiking. And this guy told them all about Jesus. And again, Christianity is so pervasive in our culture. It shocks me when you hear these stories where it's just like, yeah, this person told them about Jesus and then they were like completely different. And it's like, how do you not know? And granted, I was raised in it. I still am surrounded by it. And so, like, I'm very aware of the story and how it all works. And so, I don't know. It may be out west. It's just not as prevalent. But, God, I mean, just it's a thing that you go your whole life. It's like, what? Jesus? He died for me? I'm going to turn my life around. This is all historically verifiable information. Anyway, this is not what this is about. So almost instantly after this hitchhiker told them about Jesus, this couple changed from two drug addicted hippies to militant evangelicals railing specifically against drugs and rock music, because that's what their life had been all about up to this point. Drugs and rock and roll had led them down a path of destituteness and sin. And now we have seen the story of Jesus and have understood now that these drugs and rock music were the reason why we were so unhappy and why I tried to kill myself. You know who would not let me kill myself? Jesus. But you know who would be okay with killing myself? Chuck Berry. His rock and roll music and the Beatles. With their hips and shaking and tight pants. And then the marijuanas. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, so you have these two hippies. They immediately convert to Christianity and get super into it. Almost as if their drug addiction and their addictive personality in general shifted from being addicted to drugs to being addicted to religion. Interesting. They then went on to have two children and went on several mission trips to Panama, Aruba, and Nicaragua. In 1978, the Leela and Buffalo Son, who now is back going by Jim Green, so they are the Green family now. The Greens moved down to Miami and joined the Salvation Army, which they had taken way too literally. Like these are two very stupid people at this point. Like they have done too much drugs, and their brain cells are few and far between, and so they heard about the Salvation Army down in Miami, and they heard Salvation Army and they thought, oh man, the Christians have a military outfit where they go and militantly get people saved. This is for us, man. It's get saved or die. And we're fine killing you if you don't want to get saved. And there's a whole army doing this. Let's go. So Leela was really inspired by Salvation Army co-founder Catherine Booth's book, Aggressive Christianity, and the topic of Christian warfare that Booth covered in this book. According to Booth, Christian warfare involved passionate preaching, creatively communicating the gospel, and living like Jesus. And how that turned into ringing a bell outside of a grocery store around Christmas time, I don't know. Like, that does not feel aggressive to me. It's aggressive on my ears. Yes, I don't love that. But outside that, it's not passionate preaching, that's for sure. I don't think Jesus ever rang a bell in his life. Now, it is a very creative way to communicate the gospel. I might give you that one if communicating the gospel involves you going up to this clearly enthused person who is doing community service because they got, a theft charge because they tried to rob a gas station, and now they have to ring the bell for the Salvation Army. And then you ask him and he's like, yeah, man, something about Jesus. That is a very creative way to communicate the gospel. I hear you on that, but whatever. Maybe it was different in the 70s. I don't know. After 2 years in the Salvation Army, where they did not get to militantly save people, the Greens moved back to Sacramento, California, where they founded Free Love Ministries in 1981 after they encountered God in their prayer closet. And there's a lot to unpack in that sentence. First of all, what is a prayer closet? I'm glad you asked. I am familiar with a prayer closet because I grew up around evangelicals. And a prayer closet is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a bare space in one of the closets in your home where you lock yourself in, maybe 5 times a day. Maybe you point specifically in the direction of Jerusalem like the Muslims do. I know they point in Mecca. You get what I was saying. But it's where you go in and you pray, and you just pray. And is it effective? Probably not, but whatever. It is what it is. And the Greens, they were praying in their prayer closet, and all of a sudden God just appeared to them. Maybe they were just left over hallucinating because their brains don't work right anymore because of all the drugs they used to do. But they encountered God. And God said, bros, you got to go back to Sacramento and you got to form Free Love Ministries. And so they did. God then told them that he was going to raise up a spirit army, and he needed them specifically to help out. He needed 2 white trash former drug addicts to raise up a spirit army because God works in mysterious ways. And between the local radio program that they started and passing out tracts at bus stops and college campuses, Leela quickly began to believe that she had become a prophet of the apocalypse, probably because that's what she was just telling herself. And that's what she wrote on the tracts and pamphlets that she was handing out. Somehow, they got followers, and these new followers, as with all great cults, were convinced to sign over all of their earthly assets to the Greens prior to joining their cult. Followers lived on a quickly growing compound known as Fort Freedom, which consisted of several single-family homes that all shared a single backyard. Inside the main house, known as the Citadel, Leela performed exorcisms because demons were literally everywhere and just needed to be exorcised all the time. She also performed birthing rituals where female followers would lay on the floor and pretend to have babies. Not actually have babies, but pretend to have babies that would be used in God's army. And God, I wish I could have seen what that looks like. Oh, God. It's just, all right, ladies, down on the floor, legs open wide, spread eagle here. At Free Love Ministries, you are part of my spiritual army, and you are now going to birth spiritual soldiers who are going to be part of God's army. On 1, 2, 3, we're going to push. 1, 2, 3, and push. 1, 2, 3, and push. 1, 2, 3, and push. There we go. We have a whole little army of God's little baby soldiers to spiritually fight in this warfare. Now, I must go over to my prayer closet. I have been made aware that a new family of demons called the Black family has moved in across next door. I need to go exorcise them. And Black is their last name and also their skin color, but that's probably unrelated. The demons, they're all demonic, so we're going to fix that right now. Okay. Just stupid. Within a few years, the Greens were holding daily meetings with their followers. Everyone wore military uniforms when they weren't out working and bringing their paychecks back to the Greens. Followers were also commanded to cut off contact with all friends and family who weren't willing to join the group, as is the case with most cults. In 1985, Leela changed her name to Deborah after the character in the Bible, and then changed the name of the group from Free Love Ministries to the Aggressive Christianity Missions Training Corps, borrowing from that concept in the Salvation Army. Over the next few years, meetings inside of the cult became more strict and even more insane, as if they weren't already. Members were criticized for not screaming, crying, and vomiting enough during worship. Pregnant members were told that their children would be born possessed by demons if the mothers didn't fully let go of all of their earthly desires. And God knows you probably didn't want Leela performing an exorcism on a baby, because who knows what she would end up doing. In 1989, Mara Schmeirer, that is a name, Mara Schmeirer, sued the training corps for the abuse that she had received while in the group. During her time there, she had been subjected to confinement in a small shed, several beatings, and severe verbal abuse because she would not beat her kids to Leela's satisfaction. Mara was eventually awarded $1 million judgment and custody of her kids, which she had originally been forced to leave in the cult after she had been banished, which is crazy. Even more, because the Greens refused to appear in court for the lawsuit, the government moved in and actually seized the cult's buildings. In response, Leela ordered her followers to sneak back into the compound and destroy everything, while the rest of the group relocated to the town of Cool, California, 40 miles northeast of Sacramento. So basically, the cult gets sued. And this is where the story should end, right? Like, the government should get the money, the cult should disband because it's clear that, like, things aren't great. But instead, Leela has such control over these people that she gets them to go back in and destroy the compound after the government has seized it, so that the government can't, like, I guess, sell everything off in foreclosure to, like, get the damages money. And so then they move to this new town. But unfortunately, the group quickly creeped out the town of Cool with their mock military training exercises and were forced to move farther north to Klamath Falls, Oregon. By then, though, membership in the group had dropped from 50 people down to just 19. Life in Klamath Falls wasn't any better either. Townspeople mocked them for the Amish-style clothing that they were now wearing instead of their military uniforms. And I just scratched my beard right into the microphone, and that was probably the dumbest thing. Anyway, it was itchy. My beard was itchy. And it was on the side of my face closest to the microphone. What do you want me to do? Pause the episode like a professional? Anyway, although the group tried to open a restaurant, kind of like the Source family last week, no one trusted this cult, and they soon went out of business. In 1993, the Greens relocated everyone once again to Barreno, New Mexico, into a small brick building that used to be the town's schoolhouse. Everybody worked hard to try to make money for the cult by farming, creating various baked goods, and other small jobs. The group eventually did build up enough money to finance mission trips to India, Nigeria, and Malawi to recruit more followers. In 1997, the group purchased 640 acres on a former ranch site in Fence Lake, New Mexico, and named their new compound Shem Ra Na Ecclesia, which probably means something remotely religious. I don't know. Even more, Leela had recently returned from a mission trip in Africa with news that an African woman had agreed to give her baby to the cult for seemingly no real reason, which is very suspicious. She stole that baby. And whatever. Leela informed the group that the adoption process would circumvent any legal avenues because Leela's biological daughter, Sarah, was going to go back and tell local officials that the baby was hers, which didn't make any sense, and that the father was a local man from who had gone back to Africa. Here's crazy, right? So basically what they're going to do, all right? Leela probably steals this baby. I'm assuming. This is a black baby, all right? Like, she is deep in Africa. This baby is black, all right? Her daughter, Sarah, very white, like the whitest of white, all right? And so the whole plan for this scheme was that her daughter was going to go to local officials and say, hey, this is my baby. Do you see the contrasting skin colors? We've got a real ebony and ivory thing going on here. But it's definitely 100% biologically my baby. The father, he was a black guy, and he's going to leave and go back to Africa after he got me pregnant. So it's just write up a birth certificate, please, and just, get the citizenship, all that, Social Security, whatever. It's my baby. And crazy is that this entire plan worked without any issue. And now Sarah was just raising some random African child as her own in the middle of New Mexico. However, when the baby's aunt contacted the group asking to visit, so this baby's aunt from Africa tracked down the group and asked to come visit them, Leela got paranoid that this woman was going to come and steal the baby back and move and take the back to Africa. And so she just left the cult with the baby and just kind of traveled all over, not just the cult. She took the whole cult. Like, they left New Mexico and they traveled all over Colorado and Utah for a few months before settling back in New Mexico. By 1999, Sarah had gotten sick of both of her weirdo parents and began looking for a way out of the cult. She had been forced to marry another cult member 10 years older than her and had 2 children with that guy on top of the African child that she had inherited. And that September, Sarah and a new cult member from Australia sneaked out of the house and ran off into the desert, eventually making their way all the way to Seattle. Sarah quickly found a job, saved up a bunch of money, and enjoyed literally all of the freedoms that life could offer that had been banned inside the cult. And by all of the freedoms, I mean just think about all of the things that you do in your day-to-day life. Breathing, outside of like breathing and going to the bathroom and eating food, but like only certain types of food, right? Everything else was basically banned. Like no TV, no entertainment of any kind. Couldn't wear, certain clothes. Obviously couldn't go and get your Starbies. Couldn't, whatever, man. And so she's living her best life. However, 9 months later, Leela tracked Sarah down and demanded that she return. When Sarah refused, which drove Leela insane, she stopped eating and actually demanded that everyone in the cult do the same. She also began beating the cult members and gave especially severe beatings to that African child that she had stolen, basically. By 2002, Sarah, who had met another man and had a child with him, returned to the compound in New Mexico under the guise that she was ready to rejoin the group. However, when she first mentioned the prospect of taking her 3 kids back to Seattle with her, she was promptly kicked out and dumped at a bus station. Another year later, Sarah had another child with her Seattle boyfriend before moving to New York. This woman has a lot of kids, by the way. That is crazy. In 2006, Maura Schmeirer, the woman who successfully sued but didn't get any damages back in '89, she and her daughter Rebecca appeared on the Dr. Phil show to talk about their lives in the cult. Another former member, Paula Gable, also spoke to Dr. Phil about her daughter who was still in the cult. And after previous attempts with the local sheriff's department to get her daughter out had failed, Dr. Phil himself actually arranged for Paula Gable to go back to the compound with Harold Kopis, a former FBI agent. However, when the crew arrived, they were aggressively dismissed from the compound. I want to do like just a really bad Dr. Phil impression, but like it's in my head, but I can't get the sound right. It's like my impressions are way hit or miss sometimes. This is going to be a big miss. So we're just going to keep going with the story. So Dr. Phil couldn't get this cult disbanded. And later that year, the stolen African baby, and I'm sorry, I just keep referring to this as the stolen African baby. There's no name for this kid anywhere to be found, probably for good reason. But the stolen African baby had developed rickets thanks to Lila's abuse and broke her femur in what Lila called a swing set accident, which absolutely was not the case. Like, she beat this kid and broke her leg. The injury forced the Greens to take this girl to a hospital, which raised suspicion about child abuse going on at the compound. The New Mexico Children, Youth, and Families Department quickly swooped in and took custody of this girl and put her into foster care. By 2017, this is crazy how recently this cult was still operating, by the way. Leela was claiming that Donald Trump was God's anointed president. Obama, in case you were wondering, was a weapon of mass destruction. And that God had declared World War III. On who? I don't know. They also began regurgitating bogus QAnon conspiracies like Pizzagate, which was this alleged child sex slave ring run by Hillary Clinton from a pizza shop in Washington, D.C., and because they were spending more time on conspiracies rather than taking care of themselves, a 12-year-old boy in the cult contracted the flu and died because no one felt it necessary to take him to the hospital. Because why not? God's in the middle of World War III, you guys. And the hospital is probably just going to molest him because all the pedophiles work for the deep state doctors who are run by the Illuminati, who operate out of Washington, D.C., because the reptilian army and the shapeshifters like Hillary Clinton are going to take over the world. Duh. Anyway, word eventually got around to investigators who tracked down Sarah, who was more than willing to tell everybody everything about what was going on in that cult. And in August of 2017, police raided the compound and arrested Leela in the middle of her sermon. She was charged with 2 counts of kidnapping, 8 counts of child abuse, 3 counts of evidence tampering, and 4 counts of sexual abuse to a child under 13. Sarah's ex-husband, who she had been forced to marry in the cult, was charged with 200 counts of sexual penetration and contact to a child under 13 because he had been raping their stolen African daughter roughly 4 days a week, every week, before the kid had turned 10 years old. Why wouldn't I mention that earlier? Who knows? Leela was eventually found guilty on her charges and was sentenced to 72 years in prison. However, she was released on January 28th, 2002, after all of her charges were dismissed, even though the judge said that her case could be brought back to trial. And on April 21st of this year, 2025, the New Mexico Supreme Court reinstated the child abuse conviction by stating that the lower court's decision was incompatible with a finding of actual innocence, and far from exonerative in nature, the district court's unchallenged causation finding directly implicated Deborah, Lila, from in the commission of the crime. So basically, like, all of her charges got dismissed, but then the New Mexico Supreme Court was like, nah, you can't possibly think that this woman is innocent, and so they reinstated. As far as I can tell, she's back in prison. But whatever. Jim Green pleaded no contest and took a plea deal and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. However, as of this year, he is released on probation and parole. There you go. The Aggressive Christianity Missionary Training Corps in the books. Definitely more problematic than last week. Let us recap these dinglings and see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
Number one, Lila and James Green used to be hippies, and then they found Jesus, and then just channeled their addictive personalities away from weed and into Christianity. Number two, they were inspired by the Salvation Army. Who knew? Like, that wasn't ever a misdirection either. Like, that seems like something I could make up, because Salvation Army is just like one of the most innocent places, right? You go and take your old furniture there every year around Christmas. You ring the bell. I mean, I think my in-laws ring the bell for the Salvation Army, and they're basically, 6 degrees of separation from this cult, essentially. The Salvation Army, by all accounts, did not support anything that this cult did, by the way, but it was a very gross misinterpretation of the Salvation Army's mission. And then number three, towards the end, basically became super MAGA QAnon conspiracy, pretty much like the caricature of every crazy MAGA person out there was this cult.
What did we learn?
And here's the thing. Like, I know my audience. I know a lot of you out there might be Trump supporters. And so, like, here's the thing. Like, I'm not one of those people who think, like, oh, every Trump supporter is a bad person. Like, whatever. No. Like, because at the same time, like, there's a lot of, like, weird people on the left, right? Like, sure. You guys have the Aggressive Christianity Missionary Training Corps, which is like crazy cult, QAnon people, all of that. Racist, the KKK, pro-Russia, all of that stuff. Like, I get it, right? That's all you. But like the left has like pink-haired transgender people who just want to progress human rights, and like that can get annoying. I get it, right? Like, people with penises playing in women's sports. Oh my God, what a natural disaster. Whatever. But like, so like, this is why also like, I hate politicians in general. And like, I think people who idolize politicians and like really support and get behind politicians, like get some better hobbies. I think that's really the takeaway from this, because politicians don't care about you, right? Like if you want to affect change, do it at the local level, maybe the state, but at city and county level, that's where you can get a lot done. All right. That's that. All right. So unpucker those buttholes. All right. Didn't mean to get all political on you, but whatever. Next week, I'm so excited for next week's episode. This might be one of my favorite cults of all time. We are looking at the story of the Oneida cult. All right. And there's a really, really good chance that you or your parents or even your grandparents have a connection to this cult, and I will explain why next week. So, oh man, it's going to be good. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends, and keep it weird.
This is a podcast